Shema She'erit Yisrael, Ve'al Yovat Yisrael, Omrim Shema Yisrael.
And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Command the children of Israel that they bring unto thee pure oil olive, beaten for the light, to cause the lamps to burn continually in the tabernacle of the congregation. And it shall be a statute forever in your generations.
The eternal light. The National Broadcasting Company and its affiliated independent stations present The Eternal Light. This public service program is prepared under the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. Our story today by Morton Wishengrad is entitled The Rhode Island Refuge and features Alexander Scourby as the narrator.
They call it the old Jewish cemetery of Newport. From Narragansett Bay, the land breeze rustles in the trees, and the Rhode Island sun is clean and friendly on our graves. They sleep so still beside me. Once so long ago, they fled from Spain and Portugal, fled before the Inquisition, and they wandered over the earth again. And here in Rhode Island, they found refuge. And now they sleep, a final refuge, the last exodus. The headstones mellow in the rain. Lopez, Alvarez, Levy, Seixas, Toro. But over my grave there is no tablet, only a nameless stone the color of earth. It does not matter. The grass is my comfort, and it is warm and green and living. And yet once I had a name and also a history. My name was Mordecai, a good name, and Benjamin was my father, a good man. And in the year 1760, when I was a boy, my father said to me,
It hath been told thee what is good and what the Lord doth require of thee, only to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God.
In Rhode Island, there was reverence for God and reverence also for men, which is a fine thing. It was not so in the other colonies, where Puritan persecuted Quaker and Anglican opposed the Catholic, and both opposed the Jew. My father told me this. And also how 23 Jews came to Peter Stuyvesant in New Amsterdam and were turned away, and how in despair they came to Rhode Island. And Roger Williams said,
All men may walk here as their conscience persuade them, and every one in the name of his God.
And for 5 generations after Roger Williams, we found sustenance in his word. And the colony of Newport prospered greatly, even beyond New York and Philadelphia. Aaron Lopez sent his ships far to the whale fisheries. Jacob Rivera introduced candles of spermaceti. James Lucena made soap, such as had been made before in Castile. And some were silversmiths and iron workers and merchants and simple farmers. And Benjamin, my father, was likewise a merchant with a shop on Long Wharf. I remember still how he quarreled with Maya Pollock and why it came to pass.
10 casks of nails.
Check.
15 bushels of wheat.
Check.
100 pewter basins.
Check.
1 fine-looking glass.
Check.
6 barrels of molasses. Benjamin, 6 barrels of molasses.
I heard you.
Well?
I don't like it.
To hear you talk, someone might think molasses isn't kosher.
I want no part of it.
Are you crazy?
Molasses means rum, doesn't it?
Of course.
And rum means slaves, doesn't it?
Well, what if it does? You're not trading in slaves.
Why not, Maya?
Who cares why not?
I care. Because it is written, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother.
Oh, many things are written, and you could lose your mind trying to live up to it all.
Maya, are you a Jew?
What has that to do with it?
You can't be half a Jew, or a quarter of a Jew, or a fifth of a Jew. You have to do what is written.
Look here, don't tell me what to do. I go to synagogue every day as good as any man. I don't mix milk and meat, and I have faith in the Torah.
Faith isn't enough. You cannot be a Jew only with your lips. You're a Jew every hour, every moment, in every act.
Excuse me, Benjamin, but when I need a sermon, I'll listen to Rabbi Turo. And I think when I want to do business, I won't come here.
I'm not quarreling with you, Maya, but I won't deal in molasses when it's the blood of the slave trade.
Is that your last word?
If you wish.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Maya.
They did not speak much to one another after that, and then they grew stiff-necked and did not speak at all. Can a man bear to see injustice done without crying out? Yet how can a man protest to one who will not listen? My father's business did not go well, but Maya Pollock prospered. His ships went forth to Jamaica and Barbados, and they came back laden with good things. He dealt in molasses and in rum. And once my mother said...
Perhaps he's in the slave trade, Benjamin.
Bring the bread to the table, Rachel.
Well, it's only what people say.
People should learn not to slander a good man's name.
Did you ever hear of a rich man who was good?
Or a poor man's wife who wasn't envious.
Oh, be still. Here's the bread.
Wash your hands, Mordecai.
He's already washed. Say the blessing, Benjamin.
Blessed art thou, O Lord, King of the universe, who bringest forth bread out of the ground.
Amen. Isn't it true about Maya?
No, it isn't true. We're no longer friends, and I know he talks against me, but it isn't true. The Jews of Newport do not deal in slaves. Now go ahead and eat your supper, Rachel. Well, Mordecai, do you need a special invitation? Eat your supper.
My mother ate her supper and smiled into her plate. Then she looked up and saw my father, and saw that he saw her also. I was glad for him and for her, and for myself that I was their son. And as I grew older and took my place with the men in the synagogue, I saw that my father was as he was because he was bred to the Talmud, and my respect for the law of Israel did not diminish. It happened many years later that Maya Pollock lost his ships at sea and all his merchandise with it. My father went to him.
Oh, it's you. What do you want?
I've heard of your loss, Maya.
Get out.
Maya.
Get out and do your gloating outside.
I'm not gloating, Maya.
No?
No, Maya. You're wiped out. Let me help.
I really believe you mean it. Benjamin, you're a fool.
I don't have much to give, but take it.
Thanks, Benjamin. I shouldn't have called you a fool.
Why not? I suppose I am.
Well, a good fool, then. You didn't believe I dealt in slaves, did you, Benjamin?
No, I didn't believe it.
I didn't, you know. I could have, but I didn't. Once I tried, Benjamin. And then one day I found the book on a chair, open. And the page was Leviticus. It stared at me.
I know the place.
Do you? It said something about not making your brothers serve as your bondservant. Of all the pages in the Bible, it had to be open at that one.
For they are my servants, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt. They shall not be sold as bondsmen.
That's it. Benjamin, I thought you ought to know that.
I'm glad you told me.
You'd better go now. If you stay any longer, I'll become a fool.
Like me, Maya.
Like you, Benjamin, God willing.
There were many things my father said as I came to manhood. And I do not remember that anything he told me was false or insincere or said merely for the sake of pious display. Each morning after prayers, he went to his shop on Long Wharf, and I went with him. And on Sabbath Eve, my mother would light the candles and make the benediction, and there was peace and serenity, and a table laden with good things. I wonder sometimes whether we're ever fated to have peace and serenity for long. For the colonies were impatient under the restrictions and the taxes of the crown. And soon there was a feeling of tension and a sense of impending trouble, which made the Sabbath bitter as Mara.
Yes, but I resent anything.
Please, not all at once, please. That's better, isn't it? Let's do this thing democratically. We're here to make up our minds on some action, definite action. Moses Satius, you haven't said anything.
I'll stand with the others, Benjamin.
You can count on me, Benjamin. We'll buy no British tea, pay no British taxes, import no British goods.
How about you, Isaac Hart? Do you go along?
You know my opinion.
I'm not sure that we do.
It hasn't changed.
Well, suppose you tell us.
All right, I will. All my life I've known you. I've broken bread with you. Our children have grown up together. We've liked each other, respected one another.
Get to the point, Isaac. Thy yes must be true, and thy no must be true. One must not say one thing with his mouth and another in his heart.
You've become quite a scholar of the Talmud, Meyer Pollock.
I'm no Tory, if that's what you mean.
And I'm no rebel. I side with England. England is where I was born. England has done me nothing but good. What reason...
You live in Rhode Island, Isaac.
Yes, don't forget that.
I see. True democracy. Everyone wants to talk, and no one wants to listen.
Let him speak. Go ahead, Isaac.
You are all, at this very moment, guilty of rebellion.
Can you tell us what liberty has ever been accomplished without rebellion?
I see, Meyer, you are not only a scholar, you are also a philosopher.
Meyer, sit down, please. Isaac, let's speak without anger.
Every Jew in Newport has turned against me. Why? Because I'm loyal to England. Would Roger Williams have been able to found Rhode Island colony if not for English tolerance? Would Spain have permitted you to live here unmolested? Don't you see the consequences of your rebellion? There may be bloodshed.
Some things can only be settled in blood.
The words roll so easily from your tongue, Meyer. Before, you quoted the Talmud to me. I can also quote.
I'm listening.
Look in the Talmud Sanhedrin. If someone should say to thee, kill, or I will kill thee, it is better that thou should be killed than to commit murder. Why don't you answer, Meyer?
Shall I answer for him, Isaac?
Yes, if you can.
2 answers, Isaac. The first, Moses said, shall your brethren go into the war, and shall ye sit here? The second you know also, Isaac. Separate not thyself from the congregation.
You distort the meaning.
No, Isaac, the meaning is plain. The American colonies are your congregation. This is our place. We came here as the others came. Pray God there will be no letting of blood. But if blood is to be spilled, our place is with the colony.
Lexington came. We began to drill. Meyer and Moses Satius went among the townspeople collecting saltpeter and brimstone. The guns from Fort George were removed to Newport. Sentries were posted on the hills. And 2 full months before the Declaration of Independence, Rhode Island declared itself free and independent. And with Rhode Island stood the congregation of Newport. The young men took up arms. Abraham Satius and Solomon Rothey and Moses Isaacs and many more. And I with them. Then there were battles, and many of the redcoats were slain.
Rejoice, Isaac Hart.
And why should I rejoice, Meyer?
Because 100 redcoats have fallen.
When the angels began to sing as the Egyptians drowned in the Red Sea, God said, creatures of mine are drowning in the sea. How can ye sing a song?
Meyer Pollock raised his hand to strike him. And then his hand fell to his side, and he turned away. Isaac Hart loved the king, and he did not fear to say so. He could have held his tongue, yet he would not. It came about that he was set on by a mob and killed. And even we who had shouldered the muskets of the Patriot Army mourned the passing of a man who suffered death for loyalty's sake. But during the fight, there is little time for mourning. It is only later, when the living go into the fields to count the dead, that men can truly mourn. I was ordered to join the 8th Massachusetts Regiment, and before I went, my father took his musket and gave it to me.
Take it, Mordecai.
I'll try to use it well, Father.
When you were a little boy, I read you a few lines from the prophet Micah. Do you remember, Mordecai?
I remember, Father. It hath been told thee what is good, and what the Lord doth require of thee, only to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God.
I'm glad you remember. Now, say goodbye to your mother, and do not let her cry. And Mordecai...
Yes?
Be a good soldier. For Israel, and for America.
These were the last words I ever heard from my father's mouth. I went to war, and the congregation of Newport dispersed before the British invasion. The goods were burned, the warehouses emptied, so that nothing could fall into the hands of the enemy. And then, many years later, after the terrible winter of Valley Forge, Moses Satius wrote me a letter.
My dear Mordecai, God be with you. My heart melts for thee, for I have nothing to give thee but bad news. Benjamin, your father, and Rachel, your mother, are no longer among the living. They went to settle in another place and to help the patriots, and a terrible sickness came like the plague and took them from the living. Mordecai, Benjamin was a good man. He was eyes to the blind and feet to the lame, and a pillar of the synagogue. Truly it is said, the hope of man is but the worm. May they rest in peace.
I said the Kaddish. It is not an easy thing for a soldier to say the mourner's prayer for the departed when the feet are naked and the body is cold. Yet I tried to say it. I said it shivering in the mud and weary almost to death. And many years later, when the war ended, I returned to Newport and stood with Moses Satius in the synagogue Yeshuat Israel.
You see, the synagogue still stands. It will always stand, Mordecai.
Your faith is very great, Moses.
Why not? In America, faith is possible. President Washington came here and stood where you're standing. He saw the Ark of the Lord and the Holy Scroll, and he was pleased.
I'm glad.
He gave me a letter, Mordecai. You have fought your country's war. Now you have a right to hear why. This is Washington's letter.
Will you read it to me, Moses?
Yes. To the Hebrew congregation in Newport, Rhode Island. The citizens of the United States of America have a right to applaud themselves for having given to mankind examples of an enlarged and liberal policy, a policy worthy of imitation. All possess alike liberty of conscience and immunities of citizenship. It is now no more that toleration is spoken of as if it was by the indulgence of one class of people that another enjoyed the exercise of their inherent natural rights. For happily, the government of the United States, which gives to bigotry no sanction, to persecution no assistance, requires only that they who live under its protection should demean themselves as good citizens in giving it on all occasions their effectual support.
Don't stop. Read the rest of it.
May the children of the stock of Abraham who dwell in this land continue to merit and enjoy the goodwill of the other inhabitants, while everyone shall sit in safety under his own vine and fig tree, and there shall be none to make him afraid. May the Father of all mercies scatter light and not darkness in our paths, and make us all in our several vocations useful here and in his own due time and way, everlastingly happy.
They call it the old Jewish cemetery of Newport. From Narragansett Bay, the land breeze rustles in the trees, and the Rhode Island sun is clean and friendly on our graves. Yes, they sleep so still beside me. Once, long ago, they fled from Spain and Portugal, but here they found a refuge. The names on the headstones are mellowed in the rain, and if I have no stone, it does not matter, for the grass is warm and green and living. And something else. The words, too, are living. The words a man called Washington addressed to the little congregation at Newport. The congregation that sleeps beside me.
Copies of the script you have just heard may be obtained without cost by writing to the Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. And now we present Dr. Norman Sollitt, Director of the Wartime Emergency Commission for Conservative Judaism. Dr. Sollitt.
Appropriately on this Armistice Day, 27th anniversary of the close of the First World War, this program features our country's first war, the Revolution. From that day to this, Jewish effort, treasure, and blood have unstintingly been given to America. In World War II, just ended, 311 Jewish chaplains joined the armed forces. It is no accident that Jews have gone all out for America, or that in the noble letter we have just heard, Washington invoked the inspiring vision of Micah, prophet of Israel, portraying the day when all men would live in security, or that the Liberty Bell, sacred symbol of the Revolution, bears the challenging call to liberty taken from the book of Leviticus. From the Jewish heritage, said the Reverend Lyman Abbott 40 years ago, I quote, "The Puritans drew the political ideals to incorporate in the Constitution of the Republic. Every legislative hall, every church, are monuments of our indebtedness to this ancient people." Close quotation. At our country's beginnings, there were refugees in Rhode Island. Today there are refugees all over the world. Let them be civilized men's reminder that the unspeakable Nazis, for all their repudiation of the Bible, for all their concentration on the science of war, lost that war on the battlefield. But also that when Western civilization, when Christendom failed to halt the Germans in their bestial anti-Semitism, the Nazis gained a victory in the war of the spirit. The physical war is over, but there are still Jewish refugees to whom life in Europe is a living death, whose vine and fig tree can grow only in Palestine. Will Western civilization, will Christendom say finally, there shall be no refugees? Will they say at long last, take heed of the other command in Leviticus, Lo ta'amod al dam re'acham, thou shalt not stand idly by the blood of thy neighbor? Will they join in Washington's prayer? On their answer depends more than the life or death of these suffering 150,000 Jews in Germany and Austria. On their answer depends the life or death of the spirit of Christian and Western civilization.
Thank you, Dr. Norman Sollitt. The Eternal Light is written by Morton Wishengrad. The music is composed by Morris Momorsky and conducted by Milton Catons. Alexander Scourby was featured as the narrator. The liturgical music was sung by cantor David Putterman. The entire production was under the direction of Frank Papp. If you would like a free copy of today's script, write to the Eternal Light, 3080 Broadway, New York 27, New York. This program is a public service of the National Broadcasting Company and comes to you each week at this same time through the auspices of the Jewish Theological Seminary of America. This is the National Broadcasting Company.